Okay, let's call the meeting to the Santee Community-Oriented Policing Committee to order. We're going to call the roll. We do have a quorum, so.
We do. Mayor Minto.
Here.
Captain Hernandez. Santana High School, Brian Wilbur.
Here.
Institute for Public Strategy, David Shorey.
Here.
The CASA, Rebecca Brandstetter. Here. Dr. Mark Foreman.
Here.
Mike Aiken.
Here.
Steve Stellman.
Here.
We do have a quorum present, Mayor, and I think one person that's on the committee out in the audience.
What are you doing out there? Oh, that's okay. We'll still count you as here.
Come this way, though.
All right, then. Let's, I'm just sharing that out there. So, oh, I'm sorry about that. So let's go to item number 2, which is approval of the December 8, 2025 regular meeting minutes. Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Who's that? I didn't hear. Okay.
So moved.
And then is there a second?
Second.
Second. And call the roll for the vote.
Mayor Minto.
Aye.
Sheriff's Department Captain Hernandez.
Aye.
Santana High School, Brian Wilbur.
Aye.
Institute for Public Strategy, David Shorey.
Aye.
CASA, Rebecca Brandstetter.
Aye.
Dr. Mark Foreman.
Aye.
Mike Aiken.
Aye.
Steve Stellman.
Aye.
That motion carries with members present.
Thank you. That goes to item number 3, updates on neighborhood watch and crime prevention. Jocelyn.
All right, so this is my second week with the station. So I've been focusing over these last 2 weeks, going around our schools and getting familiar with everyone, introducing myself to the community, our retail businesses, and I'm in the early planning stages of a coffee with the community. So that is all that I have.
I'll make sure I know where it is so I can get some coffee from you.
Absolutely.
Hopefully I'll be around.
You will.
Great, thank you. And let's go to, let's do this workshop of future agenda topics and presentations. It's been a while since we've done this. And I tried at least once a year, but we've had a lot of really great topics over the last couple of years we haven't had to. And so James and I talked about it, and we thought we'd bring this up again because maybe there's some things that we're hearing about in the news that we'd like to get some information on, or maybe we want to revisit something since we have newer committee members that maybe they haven't heard before and might want to hear again. So that's what we're going to do. And so what we're going to do is just, we can either do this just round table. If you got an idea, raise your hand or jump on the microphone if I don't see you, and we'll get some of those ideas. And if not, well, then we're just going to go, right down the road. And, I always start to my left so the doctor will be first up. But he's used to being put on the spot, though, aren't you? Okay. So how do you guys want to do? Just start down here and go, or? Yeah. All right. Doctor.
Well, since you asked, I've mentioned this many times throughout the year. The ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, and the ongoing effects of that are kind of like a theme that runs through so much of what we talk about here as we delve into homeless issues or crime issues, kids getting involved in certain activities. Ultimately, we can barrel it down to what's happening in our life on the outside or on the other side that we don't normally show out in the public. So that idea of the ACEs, I know we've had a speaker come in and talk about it, but to keep it alive within not just the community, but within the committee, but also within the community, that we don't necessarily blame our behaviors on what happened to us when we were kids, but when we can engage with it and recognize that it influences whatever's going on now, and not to ignore it. And that sometimes those of you that are involved in education, you're the front runners. You're the face of seeing the little ones. Well, sometimes they're high school age. They're not so little anymore, but seeing them while it's going on, while they're accumulating their adverse childhood experiences, versus those of us here, we've already accumulated the ones that happened before 18, and we may still be leaning in and grabbing extra traumas once in a while, but they're not always traumatic. Sometimes there's a large emphasis placed on trauma, and it doesn't have to always be framed as a traumatic event, but they're adverse. That's what it is. It's an adverse event, and it is, depending on what age somebody might be, it might be a little bit different. Sometimes it's as simple as what's adverse to a 1-year-old is not the same thing as what's adverse to a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old. So that idea of the ACEs gets a lot of media attention once in a while. Sometimes it gets misconstrued. Sometimes there's a tendency to want to explain behaviors, saying, because this happened in childhood, this is why we're seeing this, and rarely are things that causative, that direct a link, every once in a while, but rarely. It's more of just a layer of understanding that, this starts shaping, it shapes the brain. It affects all of us. If we were to go around and start tabulating what ours are throughout here, we can start to find out that it it shortens our lifehood. There's a mortality connection to it across the lifespan. So it's can be an important lens to look at things through on why do I have COPD? Why might I have diabetes or something? Well, it's not so easy as a why, but the correlations between adverse childhood experiences and these lifelong medical conditions also are there. So
let me ask you this then. I know that you remember the Children's Initiative, Sandy McBrayer. Do you remember that?
The First Five Commission.
No. There's San Diego County has a organization. They call themselves the Children's Initiative. Sandy McBrayer, I think she still runs that. Has been for the last 20 years or so.
I remember Sandy. Yeah.
Okay. Well, they produce a document. It's a report every year, and it's probably about a 1/4 inch thick, and it has a lot to do with all the childhood adversities that they're identifying and what's going on in San Diego County and some of the mitigation techniques for that. So that might be good to have her come out and maybe talk about, because they talk about everything from the trauma that you mentioned to adversities like food deprivation and things like that, childhood hunger.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the things that I remember it's been so long ago since the Santana school shooting, but the impact that had community-wide with the developing, the kids that were kids at that time, and how it impacted, started showing up out on sports fields, on how sports teams were interacting, parents were interacting, et cetera. Sometimes the contagion of what, as we move through it, we don't realize that for some individuals it sits there and simmers and festers. Not for everybody, but to recognize that there's certain things that can happen at a community level, at an individual, in-home level, between parents and adults or neighbors and whatnot. So being able to bring in somebody like Sandy to talk about that countywide level, but also to just keep it alone. Officers were starting to learn. This might be something that we want to go ahead and document this because it just might be important. It's not necessarily a crime, but it might be something that maybe this family's struggling. And if the family's struggling, the kids are going to struggle too. So there's a lot of different aspects of identifying it without pathologizing or criminalizing two different directions that can sometimes be appropriate, but not always.
That could really be good because it's good to identify childhood adversities and how to bring them to the right path before they become adult offenders, for instance. So
Yeah.
that might be good to hear about. Is anybody else interested in hear about that, or?
Do you want me to go? Yeah, thank you. I was actually going to second that, just based on what I'm seeing in the school district and with the collaborative. I think trauma-informed practices and just understanding what that means and what that looks like on a very practical level would be very helpful. But also restorative practices and understanding what restorative justice and restorative practices actually mean on a very practical, fundamental level. I know we're doing a lot of work in the schools around restorative right now, and we're partnering with the Tariq Kamisa Foundation to really teach it to kids on a very basic level. When you're talking about, problems, conflict is inevitable in life for all of us, but it's how do you fix those problems and those conflicts and heal harm and repair relationships, right? That's the crux of the teaching, and peace and forgiveness, and what does that look like? And forgiveness is for you, right? It's not for the other person or those around you. It's really for your own healing, and you kind of touched on that. So I'm actually very strongly in support of having a speaker or a presentation or something around both trauma-informed practices and also restorative practices and the unique connection between those as well. And I'll end that on, I did recently go to a training at SDCOE, San Diego County Office of Education, and it was on trauma specifically with our littles, our young kids that are 0 to 8, right, early childhood. And one of the stats they shared, it still sticks with me, and I just jotted it down, but 45% of our children between the ages of 2 and 5 have already experienced one traumatic event. So I'm always thinking and, stating to my colleagues, okay, imagine then when they're 8 or 10 or 12. Right? If 45%, that's already happening before the age of 5, before they even enter our schools. That's just where my mind goes, is how many traumatic events potentially are kids being exposed to, and how many kids does that represent in our school system? And also, I'll just say, which I'm sure everyone's heard or probably knows, but behavior is a huge topic right now in schools and education, and just the behaviors that kids are showing and that teachers are having to deal with in the classroom. Not saying they're all stemming from trauma, but of course, we know that some, if not a lot of it, probably can be attributed to. So I think all of this is important to talk about because it's impacting kids every day, families every day, our teachers and our education systems. People are feeling it's exhausting. There's only so much support on any school campus or in any district, right? And so we're all trying to figure it out together. But yes, I love everything you said. So I'll leave it at that.
David?
Good. Excuse me. Yeah, I love everything that I heard you say. And you mentioned trauma systems informed. That might be another topic.
Separate?
Not many people, we hear the term a lot that, I'm trauma systems informed or whatever. But it also can easily be misconstrued and then not applied in a useful way. So that might be another topic that could be a little bit dry maybe, or not. I've taught 2 different college classes on trauma systems of care. But it sounds like you're pretty well versed in it also. And that type of a topic also on, what does that mean? In essence, it means that every one of us in here somehow could have a thread that runs into a specific incident and not even realize it, that whatever we did 50 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever is sitting there informing. The complexity of the systems idea helps then frame interventions like restorative justice, et cetera, to say that this isn't a silo that we're going to be working in. We're going to be attempting to look at as many different angles as we can, even if there's nothing we can do about it. At least we can know that it's going on. It's kind of like figuring out, when you flush the toilet, that example of flushing the toilet, we kind of take it for granted, but where's that water come from? And next thing you know, we're into climate change and the rainfall and what's happening up in the north and the snowpack and all this other stuff. And all that water has to get to the toilet, and then it has to be able to come and then it has to go somewhere. And when it doesn't go somewhere, horrible things happen. A simple idea like that is the ability of, what do we mean by systems?
Yeah. If I can bring up, is it okay if I bring up one other on that? So our students take the Panorama Survey twice a year. It's like a social, well, there's different components. There's like climate, school culture, climate, and social emotional. But in the social emotional category, a lot of our students are scoring really low in growth mindset and self-efficacy, which also are really tough areas to like teach, right? Like how do you teach a kid growth mindset or self-efficacy? And a lot of what I think about is, again, it's so much of it is systems and our mindsets and mind frames as adults and how we're interacting with students. But so much of our society is such a deficits-based rather than assets. Like, what are you bringing to the table? We immediately go to the negative all the time. So if you think about a student who throughout their whole education system or just the world we live in, right? Not even just education, just even at home sometimes, the way we talk to our kids or address our kids. And if it's always pointing out the things you're not doing right or how it's wrong, like then how is that kid ever going to believe that they can achieve, right? Or that there are these expectations or that they can do these things and have a growth mindset or have like high self-efficacy. So I think it's just very interesting because it makes us take a step back and recognize how are we interacting with children and modeling that, and our systems, right? Like how are they built to either do that or not? And so when you do come from a very punitive system historically, it is always pointing out, well, you did this wrong or you did that wrong, right? And so that makes you feel bad about yourself. And maybe you don't feel like you can achieve much at all, right? So I just think that's really interesting because our kids are consistently scoring low in those areas. And we've had principals that are like, we're trying to do this and we're trying to do that. And like, how do we change this? And we've had these conversations at the district. Like, it's a culture shift. It's a mind shift. Like, how are all of your staff interacting with students? What's the language they're using? You know, not only to students, but about students. When as adults we talk about students, how are we talking about the students? Because that all gets trickled down to the kids too. So yeah, it's all encompassing, but.
I could also add to very quickly, so Dana Brown, who is a local individual who's part of the PACES Connect, is also an amazing resource for talking about positive and adverse childhood experiences, to your point. And I agree about the trauma being maybe a separate presentation and just echoing a quote of Gabor Mate, which is that trauma is not something that happens to you, it's what happens inside of you because of what happens to you, which is a very interesting take on it. We are, still in the ripples of COVID. We are still in the ripples of some of the national traumas that have happened over the last 5 or 10 years. And so we're going to see a lot of that manifest in our youth and how they have developed the coping mechanisms and the ability to process what they're feeling, how they're feeling, rather than, just quote unquote, suck it up and go with it. And so I really appreciate this conversation, and I echo the PACES presentation as well as one on trauma.
You know what, can you get with James later and get him Dana's information out?
Yes.
Man, I haven't seen her, talked to her in years. It's funny because some of these folks have been in this business a long time now, time. And then, Mark, let's think about a secondary, presentation like you're talking about. And so there's at least 2 or 3 organizations right there that we talked about. And TKF, who's running that now? You remember?
They just got a new CEO, but Tazreen, who's been the formal CEO for a while, is now on the board. So, and just a little note, I've worked closely with them for years, and they have a commitment to our Santee School District to support in whatever way possible. So they're very dedicated to helping us, whether it's training or parent workshops or whatever we need. And so I'm very grateful for that collaboration. So I'm sure they'd be willing to come here and do a presentation and talk about their organization and just what is restorative practice and what does that look like. And
what would be interesting is that, because I know 15 to 20 years ago, the organization didn't believe there was any kind of problems in East County, for instance. Many of the gang, I don't want to say gang units, but the groups that, address gang affiliation didn't believe there was any kind of problems in East County.
Yeah.
And we've had gangs out here for a long time and different kinds. They were very dialed in on gangs that have more of a different cultural background than, people with white skin. But we have some pretty bad white gangs out here, though. And so it'll be interesting to see what their take on things are today.
Yeah, and I know they're switching their model too to more of like a train the trainer model, just for like staffing capacity. So they're actually training all of our school social workers and counselors on their curriculum, so they can go into the classrooms and teach rather than having to pay an outside entity, right, like TKF, to have their facilitators come into the schools and teach, because that gets costly, and they only have so much staff, and they're wanted in lots of districts and schools, right? So that's not really sustainable. But yeah, absolutely. I know they did share back to the Santana shooting that you were talking about. One of my close contacts at TKF did share that some people had reached out, I think when that individual was up for parole, just questions around like, how do you forgive? Like in your situation, the TKF story, how did your family forgive what happened, right? And people struggling, I think, in Santee to provide that same level of forgiveness to this individual. So I thought that was interesting. They kind of shared that with me, and I was like, oh, okay.
So is Felix still alive or still involved?
I think so. I haven't seen him. I know Tony's taking a major role now in the organization. So Tony Hicks was the individual that was incarcerated. So he's been out, I think, since 2019. And he is coming to our schools. He's helping provide trainings. He's very much more active. He was on the board for a while, and now he's off the board and onto the boots and groundwork.
That'd be very interesting to hear about.
Yeah, so it'd be kind of nice to maybe have Tony and Tezreen could come, or whoever.
Okay.
But, yeah.
All right, well, let's go ahead and let's move on. That
Yes.
was a great conversation and brought up at least 3 different topics. So, Steve.
We've had a couple presentations about e-bikes, and I know I'm pretty sure the city council recently put some things into statute, something like that about it. I think it would be interesting in 8 months or so from now to revisit that. I know that I'm hearing, and I've had experience in certain mixed-use places of conflict between e-bikes and other sorts of transportation. And I think it would be interesting to see, now that some action has been taken, how does that manifest down the line, put a pin for revisiting that topic.
Yeah. That's kind of interesting, too, because I've been looking at going back and reaching out to the state legislator who wrote that. I think that was Catherine Blakespeare. And because there's actually a flaw in that, and it has to do with not allowing parents to exercise a certain right of training. For instance, the statute, as it stands now, allowed for our municipalities or the county to, for instance, prohibit anybody 12 and under to be in possession of a bike. Well, I've heard from a lot of parents who talked about, but what about if I want to take my child and teach them how to ride, how to be responsible? It's still against the law for them to do that, even under parent, direction. And I've thought a lot about that, and I think, that really does take away a little bit of responsibility from an adult a parent who wants to teach their children about things they can do. And that by the time they maybe are 12 years old, they're ready to have one of those bikes on their own. So I'm going to reach out and see if we can maybe look at some changes to that. So within the next 8 months, we may be able to do that. And I checked with our lawyer, and they said, no, it doesn't allow us to even make that exception in our ordinance. So it'd be kind of interesting. I don't know if you've heard anything like that or about that, Aldo. So yeah, so it's out there, and it's not a bad thought, really, when you think about it. The idea was just to keep these kids that are not being responsible and being dangerous off the streets. And I don't know, I think maybe we should look at some of the adults and not being responsible and dangerous, keep them off the streets. See it all the time while I'm out there on my bike. So we'll keep an eye on that and see when we might want to bring that back, James, if anything changes happen, or if there's maybe we can keep some statistics on that, look at some statistics, what kind of sites are being written. I know that I heard the Pedigo bike owner was out riding the other day, and he was surrounded by about 9 kids on Serranos, and Serran, I think they're called.
Saran, yeah.
And he said they were popping wheelies, going through intersections without even stopping. And for me, it would have caused road rage because I'd want to knock them all off the bicycle. But not appropriate, but I think you get the idea. Because, it's just a matter of time before one of them is, badly injured or killed. And it's not from a lack of trying to have, good laws in place, but and that's one reason why they're not allowed to have them is because they're not responsible. They're dangerous. They're too small for, the city streets. So,
Mayor,
yeah.
I apologize for being late. On the legislation that allowed us to adopt the regulations, the state actually does require us to collect stats and report back. So I think maybe a good time to report back to this committee is when we gather the information to report back to the state, because it was a pilot program that only San Diego County was allowed to adopt those regulations.
All right. Make it so, number 1. Thanks, Steve. Anything else? Becca? Didn't mean wake you up. Sorry.
I know, right? I don't have anything nearly as fancy or well thought out as my colleagues here, but I will tell you that there is some emerging information and studies about the effects of marijuana on young people. I do not have that in front of me, but I think it might be worth taking a look at, particularly since we might have gotten ahead of ourselves a little bit in what's allowed as opposed to what we know happens to people who are using it. So I want to throw that out there as a possibility. I got no ideas who should talk about it, but I'm just throwing it. If we're workshopping, let's workshop.
There are a lot of organizations out there. It's kind of interesting. We have to deal now with the cannabis industry, and I'm hearing that the sales of marijuana have dropped dramatically in San Diego County, and one reason is because of all the competition out there. So it's kind of interesting. It would be nice if the industry finally corrected itself because of the way the business is going. I don't know. I don't have a lot of hope for it. Not a big proponent of it, but we have it as a law that they can do it, so we're going to make it as safe as possible. So
Absolutely.
We'll look at that. I know there's a couple of organizations that like to report on that. So
I've got another one for you if you're willing to entertain it.
I only get one.
Ah, darn. I'm going to continue to say that my middle name is actually of Sunnybrook Farm. I would love to see us in Santee and then beyond. Can we find a way that we can start talking with each other instead of at each other? Is there a way that community policing could also include how neighbors look out for each other and helping start some of those conversations? That's just my pie in the sky. I have no idea who might help us with that, but it just seems like we'd be a safer place if we knew each other enough to trust each other.
Well, Neighborhood Watch was supposed to do that a long time ago. Then we had Neighborhood Watch Next Generation. Anybody remember that? And it was even a deeper dive into community and organizations, mostly working with law enforcement, because not a lot of people come out except for coffees. They like to do that. But, so, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure you guys are always, looking at new ways and better ways and things of that nature. And, Wendy, maybe there's something that we can do as a city to put on maybe coffees, so that it's, like bring a bunch of people down to Building 8 or something, or maybe we can go to some new venue that might be coming up here in the next couple of years. There's a good idea. And, that way people can just come together. We did that workshop on Highway 52. And it wasn't a really structured meeting. It was mostly people just coming out and looking at the boards and seeing what was out there, and more kind of a, community networking. And so maybe that something like that might work out. Did you pay the bill this month? Is that why that's doing that? So
I just
that's a
had them
good
out
idea.
here last week testing the system and cleaning it, so this is fun.
Yeah. So and we can talk more about that. So just make it a real partnership and bring in maybe a couple other groups or something.
So the last couple coffee with the communities that we've actually had them at Target because we realized that they have a Starbucks right at the entrance, so we get a lot more foot traffic and a lot more opportunities for connecting with people versus at local coffee shops, we'd get just a very small group of people, and half of them already had people to meet and they didn't want to interact as much. So Target has been very successful in that regard because we just get a lot of foot traffic.
All right. Good. Thank you. Mr. Wilbur?
My turn. If it's green, I'm on. Is that correct? Well, thank you very much. Comment on a couple things real fast. Appreciate the ACEs. That'd be great to. So we're experiencing what we call bunker behaviors right now with kids. COVID was really only a year and a half, maybe 2 at the most, and yet these kids don't know how to interact with each other anymore. And it's like what they learned online is the social emotional part of interactions has been lost, and we're throwing our hands up at a lot of things. So I thank you for that. E-bikes, if we throw e-scooters into that potentially. If you come to school right now and look at my bike racks, and in the front is where we have the skateboard racks. Hardly any of that anymore. There's a few bicycles, a couple of skateboards. Everything is surrounded by scooters or e-bikes. It's crazy, and the way they're tearing out of there, across that street and where the driveway out of Santana comes, and there's a light, but people along Magnolia, I swear they don't see that light so many times, and kids are just flying across. And I understand the jaywalking laws have changed quite a bit as well. So we could throw something in there about scooters. I'd love to hear that as well. Speaking of the shooting as a traumatic event, the potential parole a year and a half ago was a big deal. What really has affected a number of my staff in the last week was the recent report of the people along Magnolia. I swear they don't see that light so many times, and kids are just flying across. And I understand the jaywalking laws have changed quite a bit as well. So we could throw something in there about scooters. I'd love to hear that as well. Speaking of the shooting as a traumatic event, the potential parole a year and a half ago was a big deal. What really has affected a number of my staff in the last week was the recent report of the being remanded back down to juvenile hall, and that potentially, if this had been tried then, Mr. Williams could not have been in jail beyond age 25, and so the fear is that he's getting out, and we still have a number of 2 actual shot victims are on my campus, and then a number of teachers that were at least there, and so it's causing a bit of consternation. Not a ton, but it certainly has raised its head with us. So the thing that you've heard me bring up before, and I had a brief conversation with Dr. Baranski the other day from Santee, is the whole vaping issue and what it's doing for us. It is absolutely out of control by the time it gets to us. We have PTA has got a grant now. They're behind this, and I think in the next couple of months we're attempting. I don't know what it looks like yet, but we're going to roll something out that has to do with getting to our community or to our parents, and this has become a major issue, and kids don't recognize the popcorn lungs and the other things that are going to be the long-term effects of this. But we are absolutely, if you had to ask me for a percentage, I don't know. I'd wonder if more than half my kids are bringing are somehow some vaping device at school, and not just tobacco, but a lot of marijuana. So Maybe that's overestimating a little bit. I don't know. Maybe it's even under. But I'd like to think my kids are smarter than this, but
They are kids.
they're just ill-informed. And they're kids, and they're indestructible. And I had that same attitude, and I still do. I have to grow up. I fell out of my attic the other day, 12 feet to the floor. It was stupid. I missed the ladder. I'm bruised up all over and cracked a rib on this side. But,
Well, I'm glad you're here.
well, I thought I was indestructible, and it was okay to climb up in there, and shouldn't have done it. But anyway, so that's one thing I will continue to bring back to this group, because I think it is a policing issue potentially, but it's an absolute epidemic that is greatly harming our teenagers. So,
Doctor?
thank you.
Going back to the ACEs, almost everything we've talked about already, somehow get right back to them. And the bottom line takeaway that I carry with me around the ACEs is, especially when we're talking about kids, but it's for all of us, is we tend to do things to change the way we feel. And one of the things with ACEs is there's all these correlations that came out of it of connecting into high-risk behaviors. You get the high-risk health behaviors, but you also get the high-risk behaviors that linger through adulthood, orthopedic injuries, OSHA claims and stuff like that. It's like, what does OSHA claims have to do with adverse childhood experiences? And who knows the correlations and where they come from? But things like the e-bikes, the scooters, what teenager wouldn't or young kid wouldn't love to run around, and those are high-risk behaviors. And using the trauma systems theory, I don't know what the crash rates are of those yet, and how first responders are, how many of them are dealing with the serious injuries of traumatic brain injury and everything else of that. But the trauma that would impact the kid, the first responders, the medical staff at the hospital when they come in, the parents, the families, the teachers, it get this contagion effect again out of somebody driving a scooter in an unsafe way, crashing into a 5,000-pound car. One's going to win, one's going to lose, and then we get to move on with the effects of that. The traumas that the deputies would encounter going to those scenes tend to harden up. They go to one, all of a sudden they go to hit one, and it's like they can't shake that one away. It's now stuck on them for the rest of their career, much less as they move on through life. So it's the impacts of all these. Same thing with the marijuana and the vaping. And I have no idea what vaping does for the system. I can only imagine it because it's substances, whether it is nicotine or THC. It's definitely changing the way they feel. And that's exactly what the ACEs talk about, is we're changing the way we're feeling, and the world just doesn't feel right now. I mean, it hasn't felt right for decades, but so the navigation of that for youngsters now is, as an educator, you guys are right in there seeing them and touching them, and, well, not literally, but being up close.
Okay, great, thanks. Is that it?
And I want to add thank you to James. If you noticed, we revamped our sign in the front entrance, and James was commenting how nice it looked, and so thank you for that. I agree. We tried to look more like you're entering into maybe a residential or a home community or something, and it looks better than that Tomorrowland kind of oblong mustard thing that was out there since the 60s. So thank you.
Next.
I will say that's probably not a slight on mustard, right? Couple of things. One, talking about cannabis, I know the council's, in the process of implementing the cannabis ordinance, and I'm just wondering if perhaps maybe we can get a report back on kind of how that's going and what we're seeing and what kind of enforcement or impact on law enforcement it may or may not be having.
Yeah, well, let me give you a really quick update, because it's something that will actually come much further down the road than what you would expect, because the ordinance is full effect, the policy is full effect, licenses have been granted, and currently most of them are still going through the state process. Mm-hmm. Once that process is done, now they have to come back here and get any kind of tenant improvement or other type of permits that will be necessary other than the business license, because they pretty much already have that. And so depending on where they all are in their, getting that done and then after they start opening and going, is going to really determine how soon we can get any kind of reports. And my guess is that we're probably good, maybe 8 to 12 months or more away from having any kind of statistics or anything on the cannabis shops.
Ways away still. Some of them are going through tenant improvement processes and development services right now, but they are still a long way away, I think, from any of them opening.
Yeah, yes, even further than I was thinking. So next year sometime.
Okay. The other one was Estrella, the helicopter, sheriff's helicopter system. I know there's always complaints about folks. They can never hear what they're saying, and there's a new number you can call. But just kind of it'd be interesting to get an overview of how that functions and what kind of, a call goes in and what determines whether or not it's going to be dispatched or not.
Yeah, we can definitely put something like that together. If you want, another topic that we have is what to do when calling 911, for example. We could always tie them together, and we can educate the public on what might be an emergency, what might be something for the non-emergency number. We do get a lot of complaints via email that might be better suited for a phone call, for example. We could throw that in there as well. I think that's an excellent point because we do see on social media sometimes people are wondering why the helicopter is up. Mm-hmm. And they may not be looking for anybody. They may just be traversing through the city, whereas sometimes we are putting announcements for somebody that we're looking for.
Right, because, if there's a helicopter circling my house, I want to know if they're looking for me or if they're looking for someone that may be in my backyard or
It's you.
So that might be. Well,
Well, keep in mind, you can always hear them, you just can't understand them.
Right. It's the Charlie talking about throwback Charlie Brown. Wah 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 wah.
Exactly.
Another thing you talked about Neighborhood Watch. I thought it'd be kind of interesting to talk about Neighborhood Watch and what is a Neighborhood Watch and how is it beneficial for a neighborhood? What is the obligation? How do you even start it? I know that they can contact you, but we've got folks watching that may be like, I've always been interested in Neighborhood Watch, but it sounds intimidating to try to get that set up. So that might be a interesting presentation. The other one was it's similar to the Estrella, but patrols in the city. I know we don't want to give methods and modes, but kind of giving an understanding of how does the patrolling happen with the sheriff's department and what's considered priority, or are there standard routes, or just an overview of what goes into a daily patrol within the community.
I actually like that a lot because a lot of people sometimes get confused with how we operate or how calls are prioritized, right? Or like I explained earlier, they may come in through email, but if somebody calls or if somebody requests an extra patrol, for example, via email, we'll forward it to our teams. But if somebody calls it into dispatch, then it's going to be in the queue to be dispatched. So that's going to take a priority.
Right.
We also have what's called a calls for service log, and that's available online for anybody that's wondering why there may be units in their neighborhood, or they drive by a certain area and they see units. They could go to the calls for service log, and they can see that that something was dispatched to that area. It may not always be what it shows online because that's what the dispatcher interpreted based on the phone call. Once the deputies get there, then they'll get to the bottom of what it actually is.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. And I think that's all.
I don't think I have anything else to share, but thank you.
I got a couple that are kind of repeat ones we've had over the years that I think were beneficial. DEA came 2 or 3 years back and did a kind of a trends, and they did a fentanyl update. I found that pretty helpful. Human Trafficking Task Force, I believe they came. I know we sometimes work with them, give them hotel rooms for stings and stuff, but I think they do a great job, and it's good to hear some of their stories. The homeless, that's usually on our homeless point in what's the term I'm looking for? Point in time.
Point in count.
Point in count. That, as I know, the homeless.
Point in time.
Yeah, point in time. I know that population has been going down, but that's probably already an annual thing on our list, right? I'd imagine.
Matter of fact, they're doing it this month.
Oh, good. And then something that popped up in my algorithm is all the new laws for 2026, since we just hit the new year, and there's a lot of laws that are new that, maybe the city attorney's office could give us an update on any of those. Some of them are completely silly, and you gotta go, wow. But be nice to hear there's probably some good ones in there. So that's all I got.
I don't have anything new. I just want to add that I do love the idea of the neighborhood watch. I think that maybe a lot of people, the public doesn't know exactly what it is or how to get it started. So I'd love to, moving forward, maybe give a comprehensive, on what that is and explain it a little bit better to the public and how they can utilize that. Going back to what you said, Mayor, about coffee with the community, I love the idea of a multi-agency, bigger scale of coffee with the community, not solely sheriff's office, but the idea of many agencies that we work together kind of coming together and doing it on a bigger scale with the public. I think that's a great idea that I would love to talk about. And the last thing I want to touch base on is vaping. That's something that I did in my previous role. I was a tobacco education specialist, so I have also firsthand. No, I did tobacco education. So I went to our schools and I gave presentations and one-on-one instruction to students who were caught vaping. So I have some great ideas on how perhaps us at the sheriff's station could work together to maybe not fully solve the problem, but to touch base on some of those issues, because I've seen it firsthand, and it's incredibly sad to see at what a young age some students start vaping, and just to kind of see how that goes moving forward. That is all that I have.
Oh, like a trainee going to lineup. Come on.
We have a few topics that we can facilitate, and certainly more than what I wrote down. All we have to do is start that conversation. We'll find it for you guys. Some of them are, for example, what to do if you get pulled over. I know a lot of people have never gotten pulled over, and they, we would like to educate them so they could be safe and we could be safe. Why we ask for certain documents, why we ask certain questions. So just to get everybody more comfortable. Once again, what to do when calling 911, and it's a great presentation. Domestic violence, how to prepare on preventing fraud and scams, right? Those are very common right now. Gangs and narcotics, like Mike said. Also human trafficking. We have a presentation right now. One of our detectives does a great job with it, and I'm not sure if he'd be able to bring a victim of human trafficking here, but he has brought a victim of human trafficking to different presentations that he does, and it has a huge impact on every single presentation. It's very powerful. So that could be something that we could at least ask to see if we can make happen. Something as simple as how to use Narcan, right? When somebody has an overdose, how to apply a Narcan, how to facilitate that, where to obtain it, for example. We have those presentations. And lastly, the Blue Envelope program, I know we presented on that about a year ago, but maybe we're due for a refresher since the city of Santee is a partner city to us.
Yeah, it might be good because get an update on how it's come along since then, because I think we're one of the first partners in that, weren't we?
Yeah, the city of Santee was the first city to partner with us.
No, okay. Not to brag. All right, is that it?
That's all I got, sir. Thank you.
Wendy?
I don't have any additional items on this one, but kind of bleed into the next one. I did have the opportunity, we talked at our last meeting about me meeting with the former subcommittee to get a little more insight into the community core values. I did have an opportunity to do that, and I'll plan to do a more comprehensive presentation.
Give us your name so we have.
Ricardo Jakowitz. I've been here since '76. This is my first time here, so I'm sorry. Hi, Mark. I didn't come up with any idea, but now I would like to have the 3 minutes per chair, since there's nobody else here. That will give me a little longer. First of all, the sheriffs are doing a great job. However, I would like to see them more in the corners of where Casco is, where Mission Gorge and Carlton Hills is, because there's a lot of people that are going through red lights. And I'm surprised there's no more accidents. Then as far as the school is concerned, I have never smoked, so I have no idea what it feels like. I've never touched marijuana. And, as far as vaping, to me, is horrible, especially on little kids. And then, if you think of the weight of the head, it's about 10 pounds. And if you stand straight, it's 10 pounds, and it's with your back. But if you are looking on the phone, every angle adds weight to your back. So in the next 10 years, we're going to see a lot of problems on these young people having problems later on.
Yeah.
My big thing that I've been here now is that I came to the city before, and even though you guys are now the president with Secret Service, it's really hard to get a hold of you guys. My main thing was the fire, mitigating fire along the riverbed. And I followed the departments, calling them, and everybody points the finger at somebody else. The last thing I heard was that the city got a grant, and now they're waiting to hire somebody to do something about it. So where is that at?
Well, do you have anything on that? Where we are along with that? We have about 18 months left on that, right?
We discussed it briefly at our department head meeting this morning. We're working with Dudek, which is a consultant that does environmental work in the riverbed. Unfortunately, there are a lot of steps that go into this grant. I'm not trying to point fingers. I came from another city, and this is not going to be encouraging to you, but I'll give you the facts.
Okay.
The city approved their match to this same grant that Santee received. They approved their match in 2019. They did not get full funding for the program until this past fall. So we're working on a more aggressive timeline than that, but this involves federal money, and it's not up to us when we get the approvals. We are working diligently. We are aware it's an issue. I know the city wants to move quickly. It's a priority for council that we get the money and we get in there and we do the clearing, but we are diligently working on it. And I'm happy to give you my direct contact information.
Well, you see what happened in Los Angeles, right, with the big fires? And I'm afraid that if, right now with the rains, everything is green, but give it another couple of months and you're going to have dry weeds. The north, where the YMCA is, if you keep going to I don't know, because the hospital, whatever it is, there's an area there that is just nothing but dry brush. And if that catches on fire on a windy day, you can say goodbye to part of Santee. So,
well, I can tell you right now, that one area you're talking about there goes between the creek and Target, for instance.
Yeah.
If you've gone through there in the last month, you'll see that there's almost no vegetation there.
Oh.
It's all gone. We got lucky. We compelled the landowner there to clean it up, and when they didn't, we cleaned it up, and we charged them for that. So the moral of that story is, if the city comes and tells you that you have to clean your property because it's a fire hazard, clean it. Otherwise, it's going to cost you twice as much. And, that's too bad, but I don't have a problem with that because, there's got to be consequence for not taking care of your business. A lot of things that go on in that riverbed are, habitat that is protected, and we're not allowed to do things with it. And like the Army Corps of Engineers is the only people that can come in and do anything if they decide to do it.
but I don't understand that because those reeds, the tall grasses, that's an invasive, that's not a normal weed that is there. So it don't belong there.
You know what? We don't disagree with you at all, and that's a frustration that we have as a city on these mandates and these prohibitions, because quite frankly, as far as I'm concerned, just go down there and, pull out the things that you don't need in there.
Yeah.
Thin it out, keep it beautiful, but, not a hazard. We don't always get to do that, though. But we think the same way you're thinking.
Okay. I know I can probably come up with a whole bunch of other things, but I didn't came prepared. I just came to look, to see, and this is not the only time you guys talk to each other, right?
No.
Okay.
We do it every month.
Yeah, the next one is at 6 o'clock. This Wednesday or something.
Oh, well, that would be a council meeting. This is not a council meeting.
Okay, right. Okay, I'll try to be there too.
Everybody here, except for the sheriff, is actually a volunteer who lives in this community or a community organization that helps provide service in our community.
Okay.
Maybe that's something we should do, is explain some of our committees and how they work. And so I'm the only one that's actually an elected official here, and that's only because I'm too stupid to quit, mostly. But that's how this works, and that's why we're a little bit more informal at this meeting. And I say, hey, do you have anything for us?
Okay.
Because it's not real rigid like a regular council meeting. Yeah.
Well, I'm 159 years old, so
I got you by 1 year.
6:30 in the evening, I'm having dinner, and we turn the TV on. And so to come into the council meeting is really, I've known about the meetings coming on. I haven't made it because I keep forgetting.
Well, you're very fortunate because SanteeTV, and you can see it all on your app. The Santee app is so wonderful. You can report issues to anywhere in the other city departments, and you can watch, because I don't want to sit in that chair for 3 hours a lot too, but I watch every city council meeting. It's all on TV, and it's wonderful. And you can rewind it. They have a YouTube channel too if you don't have the right Cox. Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, are you on Cox Cable?
No, YouTube TV.
Yeah, I have YouTube TV too. I watch it on YouTube channel. City, follow the City of Santee's channel. It'll pop right up on your algorithm. I usually sit down. It's already up.
We'll look into that.
It's already populated and ready to go.
And you can watch our comedy show at there.
So far, you've been sort of funny, yeah.
Sort of funny. We have to try harder. Is that what you mean?
Well, you didn't see me laughing, so.
Well, we appreciate you coming down here. We don't get a lot of people coming in.
Really?
Sometimes it depends on the topic.
Okay.
But we do like to have people come in and visit with us, and a lot of people come in, never spoke before a group like this, a little bit intimidating, and that's one reason why we have this just direct conversation, because we want you to feel comfortable. We want you to understand that your comments are important. May not always be able to do something about them, but it's important to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, what you said about the e-bikes and the kids, I've had, just yesterday, a kid almost came the wrong way. I was making a right turn on Cuyamaca, and the kid came the wrong way on the wrong side of the street. I didn't see him until he just whizzed by the car. I think that 12 years is probably too young. I think 14, 15 should be before they start riding the bike, because that's what their kids are now. Imagine that now they're not doing any exercise, and they're playing games, and they're eating junk food. And so we're going to have a bunch of obese kids that have problems later on. So anyway, I'm not responsible for them, so my kids are all doing good.
Good. Glad to hear it. Thank you
very much.
Thank you for your service too.
You're welcome.
All right. I think we beat that one to death. So I guess maybe next meeting we're going to get an update on community core values, though. So we don't have anything else. Okay. And then any other communication from the committee, any of the members, any announcements or anything? Up back there in the peanut gallery. Okay, and we've already heard, I think, from the public.
Mayor, would you like me to do the traffic report that I always do, or are we pressed for time?
No, you could do that. Matter of fact, James, why don't we put that on here so that we don't miss it in the future? Yeah, because we didn't have Carl to remind us.
Yes, sir. Okay, so this is the traffic overview for December of 2025, and it shows both citations and collisions. We'll start with collisions. For the month, we had 82, and the top collision locations, they're usually the same ones: Cuyamaca and Prospect. This one, Carefree and Private Road, that hasn't popped up. Cuyamaca and Riverview. And as far as citations, we had 195, and that does not include parking citations or warnings. So we actually conduct a lot more traffic stops than those 195. The top citation locations were at the 9700 Mission Gorge Road block, Mission Gorge and Cuyamaca, and 255 Town Center Parkway. As far as DUI arrests, in the month of December, we had 6, which is an increase. We usually have 2 to 3, but because of the holidays, it's normal to see the numbers double. And that's about it. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
Yes, sir.
When you were 82 collisions sounded like a lot compared to what you've reported before. Am I tracking that right, or is that average?
It's a little higher than average, I think, but not by much. We usually get quite a few per month. Yes, sir.
David?
I forgot to ask this when you were doing your first report. The holidays, obviously, an increase in theft and things like that. I know you were working with our merchants in Santee. Just curious, high-level overview, do we see increase in theft or holiday-related crime, decrease? Just curious.
We do see an increase every single year because people are out there, they're spending money, they're shopping, they're putting stuff in their car, being visible as they're putting stuff in their car, and then walking away from their car. And so the thieves know what to look for. They also come into Santee just to shoplift. They use the trolley or other methods. And what we did have is we had our cops deputies at the shopping area for the month of December. And they made quite a few arrests, preventing the shoplifting and things like that, being proactive about it. So, and some of those numbers, those arrests also increase the numbers, right? Because they actually were able to catch these people. So our numbers will reflect that there was an increase, but I think it came with a lot of arrests, which is good. Not just the crime itself, but also somebody being held accountable for it.
Great. All right, then. I think that's going to take us to the end of the meeting. So without any further ado, meeting is adjourned.